Elder Velnar's voice trembled as he sent the last distress signal. To any who hear us, we are defenseless. Please, we need help. In the depths of space, Admiral David Blake's eyes hardened as he received the message. Prepare the fleet. We're going in. The Quorian homeworld, once a beacon of peace and prosperity, now lay in ruins. Its lush landscapes and towering spires were scorched and shattered. The Quorians, a frail and herbivorous species, huddled in fear as the relentless bombardment from the Vorcan Raiders continued. Elder Velnar, their leader, sent out a desperate plea for help. To any who hear us, we are defenseless. Please, we need help. Admiral David Blake, aboard the Terran flagship Valiant, received the distress signal. His stern face softened as he listened to the Quorians' plight. The Terran Defense Force had its own battles, but Blake knew they couldn't ignore such a cry for help. Prepare the fleet, Blake ordered. We're going in. Commander Marcus Harlan, his second-in-command, approached. Admiral, the risks are high. We'll be outnumbered and outgunned. Blake met his gaze with unwavering resolve. We can't stand by while innocents are slaughtered. Prepare for battle. The Valiant and its fleet moved into position around the Quorian homeworld. As they approached, the devastation below became evident. Smoke billowed from the cities, and the once vibrant forests were ablaze. Blake activated the comms. This is Admiral Blake of the Terran Defense Force. To the Quorian people, hold on. Help has arrived. On the surface, Elder Velnar's eyes filled with tears of relief. Thank you, Admiral. We feared no one would come. The Terran fleet engaged the Vorcan Raiders with a ferocity that stunned the enemy. Blake's strategic commands and the skill of his pilots gave the humans an early advantage. They targeted the Vorcan ships with precision, disrupting their formations and causing chaos. Keep pressing them, Blake commanded. We can't let them regroup. The Quorians watched in awe and fear as the battle unfolded above. Their fragile hope hinged on these fierce human warriors. The Vorcan Raiders, however, were not easily defeated. They regrouped and launched a counterattack, their ships swarming the Terran fleet. Explosions lit up the sky as both sides sustained heavy losses. Admiral, we're taking damage, Harlan reported. Shields are holding, but we can't sustain this for long. Blake's mind raced. They needed to outmaneuver the Vorcans. Order the fleet to form a wedge. We'll pierce through their center and divide their forces. The maneuver was daring, but Blake's fleet executed it flawlessly. The Terran ships cut through the Vorcan ranks, splitting them in two and causing further disarray. The Vorcans, taken by surprise, began to falter. Admiral, it's working, Harlan exclaimed. Press the attack, Blake urged. We need to secure the planet. The Terran fleet continued its relentless assault, driving the Vorcans back. After hours of intense combat, the enemy ships began to retreat. We did it, Harlan said, relief evident in his voice. Blake nodded, but his eyes remained focused. This is only the beginning. We need to secure the planet and fortify our defenses. Following the battle, Blake and his officers met with Elder Velnar. The Quorian leader's gratitude was palpable, but so was his fear. Admiral Blake, why did you help us? Velnar asked. We are weak and defenseless. Why risk your lives for us? Blake's expression softened. Because it's the right thing to do. No one deserves to be abandoned in their time of need. Velnar bowed his head. Thank you. We are forever in your debt. The stars above the Quorian homeworld blazed with the fierce light of battle. Admiral David Blake stood on the bridge of the Terran flagship, resolute, his eyes fixed on the holographic display, showing the chaotic dance of ships and laser fire. The Terran fleet had engaged the Vorcan Raiders with all the ferocity humanity was known for. Status report, Blake barked. Shields holding at 70%, Commander Marcus Harlan replied. We've lost 2 frigates, but the raiders are scattering. Blake nodded. Good. Keep the pressure on. We can't let them regroup. The Vorcans, notorious for their brutality, were disoriented by the unexpected ferocity of the Terran assault. Blake's tactical genius was turning the tide, but he knew it was far from over. He opened a channel to the fleet. All units, this is Admiral Blake. Focus fire on their command ships. Disrupt their chain of command. Blake's orders were met with affirmations. The Terran ships adjusted their formation, concentrating their firepower on the Vorcan command vessels. Explosions lit up the void, and the Vorcan ships began to falter. On the surface, the Quorians watched in awe and fear. Elder Velnar, standing beside a young Quorian, whispered, "They fight like demons. Perhaps we do have a chance." The Vorcan Raiders, realizing they were losing ground, launched a desperate counterattack. Blake saw the maneuver and reacted instantly. Commander Harlan, execute Delta maneuver. We'll outflank them. Aye, sir, Harlan replied, relaying the command. The Terran fleet moved with precision, encircling the Vorcan ships and cutting off their retreat. The Vorcans, now trapped, fought with savage desperation. Blake's voice was calm but resolute. Prepare to engage boarding parties. They'll try to board us in their desperation. As expected, the Vorcans attempted to board the Terran ships. Blake's Marines, well prepared, met them with lethal efficiency. The ship shuddered as explosions rocked the hull. In the thick of battle, Lieutenant Sarah Carter led a squad of Marines against a boarding party. Her voice crackled over the comms, "Admiral, we're holding them off, but we need reinforcements at Sector 5B. Reinforcements are on their way, Lieutenant. Hold the line, Blake responded. Carter and her squad pushed the Vorcans back, their combat training and sheer willpower turning the tide. The Vorcans, outmatched and outmaneuvered, began to retreat. On the bridge, Harlan reported, "Admiral, the Vorcans are pulling back. We've broken their formation." "Good," Blake said. "Pursue and neutralize. Don't give them a chance to regroup." The Terran fleet pressed their advantage, driving the Vorcans further from the planet. As the battle waned, Blake knew this was only a temporary victory. They had to prepare for the inevitable return of the Vorcan Raiders. After the battle, Blake met with Elder Velnar and his council. The Quorians, though grateful, were cautious. "Admiral Blake, your help is invaluable, but we must ask why. Why risk so much for us?" Velnar's voice trembled with both gratitude and uncertainty. Blake's eyes softened. "We believe in protecting the innocent, Elder Velnar. Humanity has faced many threats, and we know the value of allies. We won't abandon you." Velnar nodded, visibly moved. "Thank you, Admiral. We will stand with you." Blake smiled. "Together, we'll be stronger. Let's prepare for their return." The Quorian homeworld bustled with activity as humans and Quorians worked side by side, fortifying defenses. Admiral David Blake stood in the command center, reviewing tactical maps. He turned to Elder Velnar, who observed the preparations with a mix of hope and apprehension. "We've reinforced the northern perimeter," Blake said, pointing to a key area on the map. "But we need to ensure all sectors are equally fortified." Velnar nodded, his delicate features tense. "Our people are not warriors, Admiral. We rely on your expertise." Blake placed a reassuring hand on Velnar's shoulder. "We're in this together. Your people's knowledge of the terrain is invaluable. Trust me, we'll hold the line." Outside, human soldiers and Quorian volunteers dug trenches and erected barriers. Lieutenant Marcus Harlan, Blake's second-in-command, supervised the efforts, offering encouragement. The two species, once strangers, now shared laughter and stories as they prepared for the inevitable assault. Blake and Velnar walked through the bustling encampment. The sight of humans and Quorians working together warmed Blake's heart. "They're starting to trust us," Blake observed. Velnar sighed. "It's hard for them to understand. Your kind's reputation precedes you, but they see your actions and know your intentions are noble. As night fell, the camp settled into a tense quiet. Soldiers gathered around small fires, sharing food and stories. Blake joined one such group, finding solace in the camaraderie. Admiral Harlan approached, his expression grave. Scouts report that the Vorcan Raiders are mobilizing. They'll be here by dawn. Blake's jaw tightened. Double the watch. Make sure everyone is ready. The dawn sky blazed with the approaching Vorcan ships. Blake addressed the combined forces, his voice steady and commanding. Today, we fight not just for survival, but for each other. Hold the line, trust your training, and remember why we're here. The Vorcan assault began with a thunderous barrage. Explosions rocked the ground as the raiders advanced. Human and Quorian defenders returned fire, holding their positions with grim determination. Blake coordinated the defense from the command center, his mind racing with strategies. Lieutenant, focus fire on their flanks. We need to break their momentum. Harlan relayed the orders, and the defenders adjusted their tactics. Quorian archers, using their knowledge of the terrain, launched precision strikes, while human soldiers provided covering fire. In the thick of battle, Blake identified a critical weakness in the Vorcan formation. Velnar, we need to disrupt their command structure. Are your warriors ready for a strike? Velnar nodded. They are prepared to do whatever it takes. Blake led a strike team, including Quorian warriors, on a daring mission to infiltrate the Vorcan flagship. The journey was perilous, but their determination carried them through. Inside the Vorcan flagship, chaos reigned. Blake's team moved with precision, disabling key systems and causing confusion among the raiders. In the heart of the ship, they confronted Warlord Serena. "You're too late, human," Serena sneered. "Your efforts are futile." Blake stepped forward, his gaze unwavering. "You underestimate us. That's your first mistake." With coordinated strikes, the team overwhelmed Serena's guards and disabled the ship's controls. The flagship's power faltered, and the Vorcan forces below fell into disarray. Returning to the battlefield, Blake rallied the defenders for a final push. "Now's our chance. Drive them back." The combined might of human and Quorian forces surged forward, overwhelming the demoralized raiders. The Vorcans, leaderless and scattered, retreated in defeat. As the dust settled, cheers erupted from the defenders. Blake looked around at the weary but triumphant faces. "We did it," he said quietly. Velnar approached, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Admiral. You've given us hope." The Quorian homeworld shimmered in the aftermath of battle. Admiral David Blake stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching the Vorcan Raiders retreat in disarray. The once formidable enemy was now nothing more than scattered debris and fleeing ships. "All units, cease fire," Blake commanded. "We've won." Cheers erupted from the crew. Blake allowed himself a brief smile, then turned to Commander Marcus Harlan. "Begin recovery operations. Let's get our wounded taken care of and secure the area." "Yes, sir," Harlan replied, immediately relaying the orders. Blake left the bridge and made his way to the surface, where the Quorians and Terran forces were gathering. Elder Velnar approached, his eyes reflecting a mix of relief and gratitude. "You saved us, Admiral," Velnar said, his voice trembling with emotion. "We owe you our lives." Blake shook his head. "You don't owe us anything. We did what was right." Around them, soldiers from both species mingled, sharing stories of bravery and sacrifice. Quorian children, initially frightened by the humans, now looked at them with wide-eyed admiration. The bond between the two races was palpable, forged in the crucible of battle. Blake and Velnar walked through the makeshift camp. "We have much to rebuild," Velnar said, surveying the damage. "But with your help, I believe we can make our world safe again." "We'll stay as long as needed," Blake assured him. "Our engineers will help reinforce your defenses, and our medical teams will assist your wounded." As they walked, Blake spotted a group of Quorian warriors thanking a Terran medic who had saved many lives during the siege. The scene filled him with pride. Despite their differences, humanity had shown its capacity for compassion and strength. "Admiral," came a voice over his comm. "Harlan here. We've secured the Vorcan flagship. They left in such a hurry, they didn't have time to destroy their data logs. We're bringing them in now." Blake's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Good work, Commander. That information could be crucial." Later, in a debriefing with his senior staff, Blake reviewed the data from the Vorcan flagship. "This information confirms our suspicions. The Vorcans were planning to expand their attacks. Taking them down here prevented a much larger conflict." Lieutenant Harper, the fleet's intelligence officer, nodded. "And it seems they vastly underestimated us. They won't make that mistake again." Blake leaned back in his chair. "Let's ensure they never get the chance." The following weeks were filled with cooperative efforts between the Quorians and Terrans. Engineers worked tirelessly to rebuild and fortify the Quorian infrastructure. Medical teams from both species collaborated, sharing knowledge and resources. One evening, as the sun set over the restored capital, a celebration was held to honor the fallen and celebrate the alliance. Blake stood with Velnar, addressing the assembled crowd. "Today, we stand together, not as separate species, but as allies and friends," Blake said. "We've shown that even in the darkest times, unity and compassion can prevail. We will continue to stand by you, ensuring that peace and safety are not fleeting, but everlasting." Velnar stepped forward. "The Quorians will never forget the bravery and kindness of the Terrans. Together, we will rebuild and face whatever comes next, side by side."